Hi, so this is the continuation of the data that I've been working on. So if you have not checked the previous video, you can check through my channel and you'll be able to see the previous video because this is the continuation of the analysis. So here I'm talking about the demographic insights and the summary of the background information. We have the age distribution, gender breakdown, education, and employment status. So for the age distribution, we notice that 40% of borrowers are aged between 30 to 45, which is the largest group, and the borrowers above 60 years of age are just 80%, which is about 2% higher than the of the default rate. So for the gender breakdown, we have the male borrowers having 56% and the default rate of 5.1%, while the female borrowers are having 44% default rate of 4.5%. What we're able to identify here is that the female borrowers has less risks in the sense that their own default rate is a bit lower than that of the male borrowers. And for the education and employment status, we notice that 75% of borrowers they have tertiary education, while the self-employed borrowers account for 12%. So what this is telling us is that education also has an impact. It has something to do with the level of default rates in terms of the credit analysis. So moving on, this is the graphical design of it, just for you to be able to understand. And we have different purpose of loan. We notice that some people actually borrow this loan for their businesses, some is for their home use, some is for personal use, and while some is for their car and all that. So, and the marital status also shows here is that we have the widowed, we have the divorced, we have the single and the married, and the default rate varies in terms of their marital status as well. Moving on, we notice that the marital status, because the widowed, they have the highest default rate, followed by the divorced and the single, then the married. So what we can tell from this is that those who are single, maybe because they feel like they are not accountable to anyone, they have less people that they are accountable to. While the married is in terms of support, because what we can notice from this is that those who are married are more likely to not default, in the sense that even if the husband is having issue with his job or something, then the wife can easily support. But we notice that the divorced, they have a high rate of default rate as well. So the widowed, actually, we notice that the reason why widowed might be having this number, it could be as a result of, okay, they have someone supporting them before, maybe the husband or the wife. But if any of them is no more, definitely the financial pressure will be only on one of them, especially when they have kids and when they are still paying rent, when they have a lot of excesses, when they have a lot of expenses for them to spend money on. So definitely we should be able to understand the reason why we have the high number of default rates for the widowed. Then the employment, the years at which a person actually spends on their current job is also something that needs to be focused, in the sense that we notice that borrowers who have stayed on their job with, let's say, 5 years, it shows a level of stability and their default rate is just 3.5%. But those who are less than 2 years, their default rate is way higher, which is 6.8%. The employed borrowers 78%, and their average risk index is 0.35, and while the self-employed borrowers have 22% and their average risk index is 0.52. What we can say about it is that self-employed, they take care of their profits and their losses. But for people that are employed, even if the organization is running at loss, definitely they will still get paid. So their salary is something that, okay, we notice that that is one of the things that amounts to them having a lower risk index. And default by gender, of course, we notice that female are more likely not to default, while the men are having a higher default rate according to this analysis. Then the loan purpose also. Sometimes we also need to pay attention to the purpose of loan, because we notice from this analysis that people who borrow money based for their personal loan, just for personal use, they have about 40% of the total loans that we have, and their default rate is 6.5%. While the small business loan is having the default rate of 14%, while the home loans is having 2.5%. The reason for this is very straightforward, because home loans, in most cases, if someone wants to pay 1 million, definitely the person will have saved some certain part of this money. Then due to one reason or the other, they need to add to it. And in some cases where we have the caretakers, the agents, landlords trying to increase their rent. So such individual will be in the situation that okay, they need to borrow money so that they'll be able to add up to what they have. But when we are talking about personal loans, that means these are contingencies that the person can even still do without it. But because sometimes we are human, we just feel like, oh, I need to satisfy this need and it seems urgent. Which is why once they borrow it, repayment is usually very hard for them. I'll stop here today, and in my next video I'll be able to continue on this analysis. Thank you very much for staying up to this, and so I would like you to watch next video so you'll be able to see the concluding part of the analysis, where I will do the risk index, the nominalized index, as well as the default risk standard. Thank you.